Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Stories. Today we're going to hear about Jeff and Hillary, a dog, and a little bit about Colorado, and a sign of what this market is like. But before we get into the story, which will only take a few minutes, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It will really help me grow this channel, which is my goal. All right, so here we go. So I sold a house to Jeff and Hillary a few years ago. They called me up a couple of months ago and said, hey, we're thinking about moving. They had relocated to this area from Colorado, and now there was conversation of actually moving back to Colorado. So went over to their house. It was nice to see them. I hadn't seen them in a few years. And then we kind of tabled it. They really weren't sure of how the logistics of that were going to work. They still owned a property in Colorado, which was rented. So we just let it go. And we said, well, you know, and this was the busy time also for Jeff's work. So we didn't know how that was going to play out. So we just kind of left it alone. We said, well, we'll just take it as it comes. And I'm here to help whenever they're ready. I get a call about a month later from them and they say, hey, do you do rentals? I said, sure. Well, their son, who also lives in this area, needs a rental. So we're like, okay, we need a rental. And he had a very specific budget. He also has a dog. Important note about that dog and rentals. With rentals, in this area at least, only about 10% of the rentals that are on the market at any moment will allow some type of pet. This particular dog was the kind that you could basically hold in one hand, and it probably runs on batteries. But that doesn't matter to most landlords. So anyway, so I look around. It's really tough. You know, the market's a little crazy right now as I shoot this video. So we can't really find anything. We get to talking a little bit more, and they say, well, do you think you could find us a reasonably priced property? Maybe we'll buy it and we'll rent it back to our son. And I thought, you know, that's pretty clever. I've actually had clients do that in the past. So there's the first lesson. Crazy market. Son is very fortunate that the parents have the wherewithal that they can help him this way. His rent ends up being a little bit lower. And Jeff and Hillary own another piece of real estate. So it's a win-win all around. So look around. Again, we have the dog. If we want an inexpensive property, we're probably going to be looking at condos. So I keep my focus on condos. And they also want to be, or they want him to be, and he wants to be in the general area close by. So again, limits what we can look at. We kind of recognize a few properties. Again, the pet policies at most of these condo neighborhoods can be tricky. So we find a property in a neighborhood that I'm pretty familiar with. It had just come on the market. I wasn't sure about the pet policy. I'm never 100% sure because those things tend to change over time. So the first thing I did before I made the appointment was I reached out to the seller's agent and I said, does this neighborhood accept pets? He texted me back and he said, yes, it does. I said, great. One little dog, would that be okay? Answer, yep, that would be fine. So we look at this place, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, perfect place, very respectable, great neighborhood. We put the offer in out there, of course, multiple offers. That's the kind of market we're in. We're able to get our offer accepted. Wonderful. So we start moving through that process. My client decides to engage an attorney in this area, which I think is a great idea. Same attorney, I believe, that they worked with a few years ago when they bought the house that they live in. So we get through the home inspection process, not a big deal. It's a condo. And we're way into this process. And the first thing that happens is I get a call from the lender, and the lender says, we have a problem. And I'm like, what? You know, you checked out everything. It all looked okay. The finances, he said, no, the buyer's fine. Buyer's finances are fine. He said, I know this neighborhood. I just tried to do another deal there or finance another property. And there's a lawsuit against the homeowners association. So we can't put a traditional conventional mortgage on this property. I'm like, ugh. And there's all kinds of variables back there depending on what the lawsuit's about. You know, there's lawsuits at any moment against lots of condominium associations. Somebody gets upset about something, and like that's a whole separate video, right? So I talked to this particular lender that he chose to work with, who fortunately also happens to be a banker. So he's a mortgage person and it's a bank that he actually works for. So because of the financial wherewithal of this particular client, he was able to put this one on the books and hold the paper or the mortgage note at the bank and get this financing moving along. So I'm like, okay, great. We got past that. Moving along in the process, and this whole thing was only like 5 weeks, but moving along in the process, it's about 10 o'clock one night, I get a text message from Jeff. And Jeff said, hey, I was just reading through the bylaws and the rules and regulations, and it says no dogs. And I'm like, what? Now we're through attorney review. We're through basically any contingency that we had in our contract. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I go back into my phone. I double check. Okay, I did ask the seller's agent about the pets. He said it was okay. I said, this just doesn't make any sense. I checked with him again. He said, yeah, the seller's pretty sure, we're confident that there are dogs all over the neighborhood, actually. Seller didn't have a dog, but dogs all over the neighborhood. So next morning, everybody hits the ground running. I'm reaching out. My assistant's reaching out. The attorney's reaching out. And the buyers, Jeff and Hillary, are reaching out to the Homeowners Association. Everybody's reaching out. Here's what we find out. Never heard of this before. Dogs are allowed, but there's a cap on the number of dogs allowed in the neighborhood. Not on the number of dogs allowed for each homeowner, which I've heard of before. Sometimes you can only have 2 pets. This one actually said, we have put out enough licenses for dogs. We are not putting out any more licenses. Never heard of that before. So we kind of recoiled a little bit. Jeff and Hillary and I spoke about it. The whole thing just didn't sound right to me. So I said, Hillary, why don't you call the property management company yourself and plead your case? And that's what she did. So they said, okay, we'll allow the pet. I don't know all the nuances behind it, but that's exactly what happened. Every deal has twists and turns, but we got it done. So that was another episode. Please like and share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. And I promise I'm bringing you more stories soon. Be well.